Hi everyone, I'm Paola Juárez from CASA A.C. San Miguel.
I'm Nadine.
Guadalupe Álvarez.
Since this is International Month of the Woman, we have chosen 3 women who have contributed greatly, not only to San Miguel, but to the country and actually all over the world. Paola, who's sitting, raise your hand. Okay. She first became communications director for Feed the Hungry about 5 years ago. And my introduction to her was that I was planning to have a walkathon. I was involved with Feed the Hungry as an event planner. And I was talking to Paola, and she said, well, let's do it virtually. And I said, Paola, my friends don't know what virtually is. We are more than a generation apart. P.S. Paola she's the kind of person, when you ask her to do something, she does it, 3 times as good. And her walkathons that she holds out, I think mostly at Dos Buos, are some of the most fantastic events I've seen in San Miguel, because they involve the entire community, rich, poor, young, old. They're really wonderful, so when you get a chance. Plus the fact, the way she gets corporate sponsors, I have no idea how she does it, but she's terrific. To tell you the kind of detail that Paola goes into, she found out, and you probably don't know this, that today is the birthday of Minna Khan. Minna was a Finnish woman who died in 1897, and in that country was considered a pioneer in the fight for women's rights and social justice. So you can use that at your next cocktail party. Okay? And then Nadine Goodman. I think I first saw Nadine at least 30 years ago, running across the Jardín to a meeting, holding a child and breastfeeding it as she was running across. Nadine found the NGO CASA in the early 80s, along with her husband. And CASA, I don't know how many years ago, was named by the International Planned Parenthood of the Americas as the foremost organization in Latin America educating young people in birth control. I hadn't been there, at least 15 or 20 years, and I went up the other day. And if you ever get a chance, you should go, because the programs that she's running for teenagers, dealing with violence, women's reproductive rights, I never say it correctly, LBGT rights, it's just fantastic. It's terrific what she's been doing. And then I know Guadalupe also over 30 years ago. We met through a mutual friend, and we shared the same gynecologist. So, since then, I've watched as Guadalupe has built an extremely successful event planning business, and she uses the profits from this for a number of global projects, such as building schools in Africa and building homes for earthquake victims in Oaxaca, and she contributes to the communities. I mean, I don't know how many charities she's given to here. Anyway, I'm going to let my friends tell, their own stories. And Paola, why don't you start and tell us where you came from and how you got to San Miguel and what you're doing, okay?
Thank you. Well, first of all, it really is an honor to be staying here, right here next to Nadine and Guadalupe. Everybody knows who they are. Not everybody knows who I am. But it's not a competition. I haven't gone international yet with my charity or my NGO work. I arrived in San Miguel in 2003, and I was invited to join a marketing project for a supply chain company based out of Querétaro. And even though I was necessarily promised a promotion, they said you're on a 3-year contract. That turned out to be 9 years after the fact, and I did become the manager of that office. But I was living here in San Miguel, and that's how I first arrived and what brought me to San Miguel.
Nadine?
Wow. I'm also really happy to be here. It's kind of yucky because we only see black out there, so I can't see your faces. But I am happy for all of you that are here in the audience. And it's really, we had a meeting the other day where the four of us met in sort of a different session for this. And I mean, we really, myself and Guadalupe, basically I came from New York in 1981. How do I say this? Fell in lust, ended up staying, was not planning on staying here. My husband's from an old family from here. Guadalupe, her brothers and sisters, her nieces and nephews, blah, blah, blah. All of our kids have known each other and so on and so forth. We really haven't had contact for 30x years, if not 40, and so on and so forth. And it ended up in the conversation the other day when we were planning the session a little bit that your mom has worked with me, and she is, as far as I'm concerned, should be up on the stage here with us, because she is an incredible feminist, an incredible woman who works in the public health department and very often has a lot of barriers and obstacles in terms of doing what's right for public health and women's rights and so on and so forth. And she's always been a supporter of CASA, especially one of our many programs, which is a midwifery program, which was, supposedly risque because it was the first midwifery program school that's accredited by the government in the country. I mean, midwives are older in our history than doctors, but more or less they've been exterminated, and now we're trying to bring them back. So it's a pleasure to be here. I will do my best not to talk too much. I have a tendency to do that. Sorry.
That's a New York trait.
So, Guadalupe Álvarez, I'd like to say, to tell everybody that I know, that my family is moving down here right in my quinto. So, I like to brag. A few of the locals, and growing up here was, it was a little town. It was 15,000 people. I mean, going to the garden was an adventure. You had to get permit from your family, and you had to go and get some candy. But what I really liked about that time in my life was a community. I've always been a good girl, but my cousins were not. And when we were past the time at 7, everybody would tell you, go home. And I love that, and I really miss that. I miss that you could walk to anybody's house and you just pull the cordon, and you would just go in and they would give you a candy, or they would give you water, or if you wanted to play with the children, you didn't have to plan anything. It was really a community. I went to school with Las Monjas, a lot of places who were next to, it was the school, my grandparents, the theater, and it was across the street. That was my world. And it was a really lovely world, because I went to school with the daughter of the cleaning lady, with the son of the owner of the bank, with the girl from the community who had scholarship, and I really miss that. I miss that we sometimes are a little divided, and that now there's all these developments. I'm not criticizing, because I think everything is good in the world, but I miss that about the community.
Thank you. Now will you tell us, we'll start with Paola again, because she's the kid on the block, how you ended up with Feed the Hungry and what you're doing there.
How I got started with the non-for-profit work.
Right, the not-for-profit.
I started when I was 11 years old. It was just, as growing up in Chihuahua, there was a group of Girl Scouts who we would meet at the end of the block. And I just walked myself, and I said, I want to be a part of this, because I would see them so active and doing things in the community. So one of the very first experiences I had was going to the nursing homes and singing. I'm glad they enjoyed it. Singing, reading, and keeping company. That was really my very first encounter when it came to realizing that there were people out there that needed help and attention. Later on in my professional career, I was involved with the walkathons, as you said. That started back in 2008, and it really started by the company I was working with at the time doing as a donation of our used computers to an orphanage in Querétaro. And they came back and very graciously gave us a thank you letter. That thank you letter made a whole difference for the rest of my life because it felt so good. And then the whole team decided, what else can we do? How can we create more impact? Obviously, we didn't have that vocabulary when we're in the for-profit media world. How can we get our name out there, and promote? Anyway, it started like that. And 5 years ago, my neighbor, who conversations over dinner and chats across the patio, we learned from each other what she was doing for Feed the Hungry and what I had done in the past for Mexicito and the girls' orphanage here in San Miguel, who said, why don't you become, she actually said, I can't move out of San Miguel until you become part of the communications team for Feed the Hungry. And that's how I came to this world. My challenge with that is telling the story over and over again, telling you how many meals we feed, how many meals we serve, how many children we have in our program, which is close to 5,000, but in a way that you don't get bored.
Nadine, same question.
I'm sorry, tell me the question again. I'm the oldest.
No, I'm the oldest. I forgot the question. No, can you tell us how you started?
Sure.
CASA? You and
I mean,
Alan.
basically, and this is not, what's the word? A low-key, false modest thing. When I talk about this, I really say it's been an organic process. Even the term of, that we founded CASA, I sort of feel like CASA found us. I mean, it's not our job, it's our life. It's our value base, it's the way. We're very fortunate that for many years, because now my husband and I are both volunteers, but for many years, he's always been a volunteer. Kind of pisses me off, but he's always been a volunteer. But I had a salary because I needed to earn a salary to help support our family, and he was making money from other things. But the point is, everything that has happened at CASA, as much as it sounds trite, has been organic. It was this type of work I did in the United States in the 1970s. A sort of gritty New Yorker, Jewish social worker who got lost in Mexico, basically. So this work was not new to me when I got here. And when I got here, I found the same thing that I found in the United States. I found a lot of women who didn't have a concept of bodily autonomy. They didn't have self-esteem. They didn't know, what came after A, never mind B and C, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, we just started, having kids over to our house, doing sex education, doing family planning. One thing led to another. The government here on the state level called me, and, they were all impressed because 40 years ago, the field, now everybody knows epidemiology because we're all, freaked out that we're going to die of COVID or whatever. But, back in the 40, 50 years ago, people were not quite aware of public health initiatives and being an epidemiologist, and I was trained as an epidemiologist also, blah, 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 blah. And one thing has led to another. I mean, very often people say things like, oh, why do you do so many things? Why don't you do one thing? It's much easier to tell. And I was always feeling that what I do is what I need. I've been a working mom. I needed to keep my kids safe. I've needed to keep my kids close by. To me, whether we're talking about abortion or family planning or daycare or having a dignified birth with your partner next to you as you give birth, which is a natural thing, not sick, things can go wrong, but most of the time, if we get out of the way, things go fine, et cetera, et cetera. So basically over literally 4 decades now, things have just unraveled. Oh, we need this, we need that. People need a daycare, people need lab, people need medical attention, kids need a place to hang out. How do kids relate? Everybody loves music everybody when you're a teen, you love sex and music. So, we started doing programs with sex and music. We started doing programs with, the point is that people, a little bit of what you were saying, and my kids grew up here too. When things grow, it's hard to feel as close and as at home. And when you are marginalized, even if things are little, you are rejected. So the idea of CASA has always been, whether it's the adolescent who's pregnant or it's the teenager who's, an ex-pandillero, how do you say pandillero in English? Gangbanger, or if it's somebody who has an abuse problem, et cetera, you're welcomed. And I think that's the most important thing about CASA. Thanks.
Same question?
Same question.
Okay, how did I start?
You're here.
So when we were little, my parents didn't have much, but whatever they had, we would share. So I remember going to different places that I didn't even know with something in an envelope, which later on I found it was a little bit of money. I would knock on somebody's house that my father or my mother knew they were struggling. I would just say, here's the envelope. I wasn't supposed to say who I was. I wasn't supposed to say what it was. Basically, I didn't know. But that later on taught me that there's so many people that they don't want to ask for it. But if you know, you can help. And it was lovely because there was times when maybe the envelope had 20 pesos. But I'm sure that person felt really good that somebody was thinking of that. So that's how I started. And then, of course, I had my children, I had my struggles, I had no money, I had to pay college, and I had to pay all those expenses. And for a while, I couldn't help much, I helped a little bit. But now that I don't have all those expenses, I can use that college money to help you. So that's all.
But can you tell us how you started? How did you get involved with the event planning business?
Oh, sorry, the event planning. Again, it's all about my children. We did 5 years in the US, and they came back when they were teenagers. And honestly, they know because I hear they were horrible. I'm sure like yours. Teenage years in San Miguel are very tough because there's a lot of things that you shouldn't do. There's a lot of partying, there's a lot of things. So at the time I used to have a factory and I produced housewares, but I had to travel a lot to sell my products. So I traveled at least once or twice a month to Europe or to the States, and they needed me home. So I decided to do something local, and local was event planning. So that's how I started. And now it's been 19 years. Now my children work with me. And I'm very happy. I see them every day. I'm sure sometimes it's very hard on them because I am bossy, but I'm very happy to have them.
Okay. I think you've really covered this, but if there's anything else you'd like to say about it, because we talked about it, about what the most satisfying thing about the work that you do now is.
I want Nadine to tell us about what she's working on right now because I just heard about her.
Yeah, terrific.
Por favor.
We're like in this little love fest here. Yes. Es muy bonito. Muy bonito. One thing I didn't tell you right now that I think, at the risk of making CASA sound as if it's different, but I think one of our focuses that is different from many other of the good works that many, many people do here locally, nationally, and internationally, is we combine what in the jargon world is called service delivery. We provide a kid with daycare, we provide a teenager with a condom, we provide a woman who's a mother of 3 and had an unintended pregnancy, we provide her with an abortion, we provide birthing, et cetera, et cetera. But we've always also worked very closely with both local, state, and federal government and what we call public policy. So, I'm not going to give a little government talk, but we all know that we hopefully live in a democracy and we have laws and we have rules and regulations that dictate everything that we can or cannot do. And I was just saying as we were waiting to start that in Mexico, many people don't know that in public hospitals where close to 3 million babies a year are born in Mexico, a woman, when she gives birth, has to go in by herself. Like they don't let the husband in, they don't let the mother in, they don't let anybody in. And most of us, when we've given birth, have had someone who loves us and who we can, give our fingernails into and so on and so forth with us. And it's, birth is a pretty important thing. It's really, I mean, the same of what Lupe just said. Everything that we've done, we do because we're a member of a family and to help our children more than anything, and now our grandchildren. So anyhow, after 40 years of working on different policies and having different things work and not work, now we're at the stage where nationally it is going to be approved that any woman, women who go into private hospitals, they can pay a lot of money and they can have candles and they can have music and they can have their boyfriend and they can have whatever they want. But again, women who don't have the money for a private birth, which are more than 2 million women a year, have had to give birth alone. And so now there's a new regulation that's about to be published. And if I don't make any sense, it's because literally I haven't slept in 3 days. These documents are 200 pages long. But this is going to be approved in the next 2 months. So basically, I would say on both levels, if I see one person who I know is happier and has a healthier life, that obviously makes me happy, especially if it's a kid. But I will say honestly, when you can work on a public policy level and know that something's going to be there that affects literally millions of people, that's very satisfying.
Yeah, of course it is. Wow.
What is the most satisfying thing you find about working with Feed the Hungry?
About working with Feed the Hungry is getting out to the communities, really seeing the changes that when we go into a new school and we have the nutrition reports come in, and it's 6 months later or a year later, seeing the curve move over or have that majority of the children in healthy ranges. To me, that's big because I know that if they have the right nutrition, well, they're retaining information and they have a better opportunity at getting an education or higher education. The early childhood nutrition program to me was something that started right before COVID, and all of our programs had to be shut down because we work out of the schools and the schools were shut down. So consequence, our kitchens and our nutrition program was also shut down. So one of the biggest gratifying experiences that I had with Feed the Hungry was working through the pandemic. We procured 20,000 people's basic staples throughout the pandemic, the lockdown, and even after the lockdown, as we gave them opportunity to get back and reintegrate themselves into work. That's huge. I mean, you don't think about food being, well, we're fortunate. We, economically and socially, we're very fortunate to not have had those types of experiences. And being there in the front line, delivering those food bags every 15 days to the same communities, in the amounts of people just lining up to try to get food, because we said it's voluntary. Obviously, somebody else. Well, the elders came, the people with disabilities came, the mothers with their babies came, and we kept on going with the nutrition education for the pregnant women and the children that weren't yet at school. And that's the early childhood nutrition program. Is one of the most dear and close to my heart, because you're making an impact when they're before 5 years old. And study after study, as you know, proves that if you have been faced with malnutrition at an early age, those effects are irreversible. Later on, it's okay. You can be, it doesn't matter. But your brain doesn't get affected by the malnutrition status when you're under 5 years old.
There's many things. One of the biggest satisfaction is giving jobs to so many people. There's 6,000 families in San Miguel that live out of areas. From the person who handles the donkey, to the florists, to the people who sell the tomatoes, to the musicians. So that is one of my biggest, of course, seeing the bright work that we on is beautiful, but just knowing that these people can take money home, that they can pay for the school of their children, the shoes, and all that, that's the biggest satisfaction. But then, like you said, when the pandemic hit, we all formed a big alliance, and I don't work for I'm not in a non-profit. At the time, I was the treasurer of San Miguel Community Foundation, but San Miguel Community Foundation doesn't feed people. They do other amazing things. So with Mirna Montes. We did Amigos al Cien, and I want to thank you all because I'm sure you all contributed to feeding all these people of San Miguel, and it was very, very satisfying. Like you say, just when they sure that people didn't go hungry, that they didn't feel so unsafe because we, with the mask project, provided them masks. We gave them clothes. I mean, it was a great effort in San Miguel, and what is important to me is going back to being a community, una comunidad. We couldn't have done it without you. We could not have fed that many people a week, more than 5,000 families a week, without all of you there in comunidad and right now. So that's very satisfying.
Can you tell us how you got involved with the schools in Africa?
Well,
Briefly.
I wanted to volunteer with elephants. Why? I don't know. So I went to Zambia in 2021, and this amazing program run by Game Fish International doesn't only show you the elephants, so they show you the communities that are affected by the elephants, either because the elephants live close to them, or because they raid their cubs, or because the people scare the mothers and they exactly be taken care. And one of the things we did is go to the communities with the ladies, and one time I like to sew. I like to do things with my hands, so I saw these fabrics that are from Africa, Ishtenges, and I said, why don't we teach them how to do bags, market bags? So we went to the ladies, we talked, we bought scissors and everything, we showed them how to cut the bag, and that's it. Then one of the communities that we went had, and you know, una chocita, a little house with wood, nothing that you don't see in Mexico. But for some reason, it affected me very much that the children didn't have a desk. They were studying in the floor without any light. So for some reason, I had internet. I told my children who were here, and I said, why don't we build a school? And they said, yes, let's build it. So with Game Rangers International, we built a school for 365 children. And we are giving them sex ed. I mean, not me, but we are giving them sex ed. We're giving them menstrual pads. The girls are so happy to know that they have more than 30,000 eggs, so they don't need to get married. They don't need to have children when they're 13. They can wait when they're 20 because they didn't know. So it's been just really amazing. And honestly, it was just so incredible to walk in a school last August and see my Mexican flag flying with the Zambian flag. It was just great. I hope we can do it in Ethiopia, in Flavio, who's here, in Paragota, which is a little town in Valibena. We're working on that. And that's how.
That's terrific.
Take me with you.
We're all going, we're giving the same program there. One other question for you, and then we'll open it up we'll put the lights off and so we can see you and do some questions and answers. But in the work, or whatever you want to call it, that you're doing, have you faced many challenges? We don't want to get into the feminist thing, but have you run into any challenges in what you've been doing with government, with whatever?
I come from a male-dominated industry. I certainly had my share of challenges with men, and also men who gave me opportunities as well. But I think too that I would highlight.
How about women who think they're men?
Well, that was true, and I think I was one of them, and I think that's why I was treated that way. But listening has been a big challenge by my male counterparts, where an idea may be brought on the table, and then I get mansplained why it wouldn't go through, and then the next meeting, another male would come with the same idea and would get applauded, and the idea to be implemented and executed. The other challenge that I faced is starting favoritism by men in all aspects, from challenging the way that I do my business or the way that I ran my business, and I hired people because I was one of the first offices here in Mexico that hired gay men. To just the social interactions, I was challenged and expected to maybe be able to party out all night and drink with them and bunny bun and show up in the morning at 8 o'clock and act like nothing's happened. So in a lot of ways, I think those have been the biggest challenges. But
Can you combine that with raising a family and working?
you mean like work balance? I had to leave the corporate world to be able to raise a family. It wasn't going to happen. I was already in my late 30s, and I've been to specialists who had told me I wasn't going to get pregnant if I kept this rhythm. So part of what I did was volunteering and really leaving that behind me and doing a career change. Not 360, because I didn't come back to doing what I was doing, but a whole 180 from one sector to the next. So don't be afraid. I had to not be afraid, change careers. Just because I went into management and marketing and sales, it didn't mean that I couldn't change to do a non-for-profit work in communications, something that has been a big challenge because I knew very little. I just knew how to talk, but I didn't know how to get the message across to the diverse group of people. Like, don't get me into TikTok because I need a volunteer for that. But I can do Facebook and I can do Instagram más o menos. So, but again, I think that would be it. Right now, the way I balance days is really relying on my husband, who's here in the audience with my children, because he doesn't help me get breakfast or help me get them to school or get them get here. He does it because he knows it's part of the family dynamics. So finding that partner that is going to help me and support what I believe in is been huge for me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Nadine?
I mean, life is solving problems one by one. There's never an absence of problems. And even though you say that you don't want to rant about feminism, feminism is just that nobody should be limited and by their gender. And the news is there's supposedly 75 genders now, so we have a lot to learn. You know, I mean, for me, I think that it's not an equal world, for sure. I mean, we've all been dominating women, and in our two cases, we work for ourselves. So we have that as a buffer. But are there obstacles all the time? And then in my case, the themes that my work is about are still supposedly controversial. So, you know, those problems are there all the time. But, you know, whether there's been, you know, little exciting stories of one padre in particular, you know, in the San Francisco church who was talking about me in mass, basically saying I was the devil and this, that, and the other. And it got a little hairy, like, you know, when somebody is basically stroking hatred, you know, like people who run for president in the United States, you know, that's dangerous. That's saying, yes, racism is cool. That's saying, yeah, we can be classist, can I say assholes, et cetera, you know. And so all of those obstacles are there 24/7, including sexism. And, you know, but you just go with the flow. I mean, it really, I mean, all the time I say, you just got to show up. And the good news and the bad news is you don't die of humiliation. You know, like, it can be, you know, pretty bad and you can feel pretty bad, but like the next morning, especially, I mean, if I think that women have an advantage, it's because biologically we take a risk, literally with our lives, to bring another life. And we, you know, that helps us not be such big jerks, because then we can really put somebody else's need in front of our own. You know, sometimes men don't have that advantage, so we just have to help them along a little bit.
Did you see the article in today's Times about, I can't remember the nation in Africa, that they had banned the clitoral circumcision, and the court overruled them so that they can go back to doing it again.
Yeah. You know, listen, when it comes to any society, I think it's not just that we're growing so fast, but we're still basically focused on an economic system that tries to help as many people as possible, but the emphasis is on trickle down. So that leaves a lot of people who aren't empowered economically. And also, we're very violent. We're a militarized world. So as long as we had those two things going on, we got a lot of work to do.
I think I'm lucky to go held the sport in a family where my dad and mother thought I could do anything. So, but I do understand the struggles because I see it. When I got divorced and I had the two children, I had to work, and it was hard then, but it was also hard on me to be there on Mother's Day and all that. So the challenge was either I sent them to good schools or I stay every month. I decided to send them to schools, but so I just feel that in Mexico, especially in the communities, they don't have a choice. The women don't have a choice. They have to mother, they have to be kids, they have to work, and usually they work, and they do very difficult. So I think what we need is to try to make us more people work. That's my thing.
And thank you. There were a lot of women here to choose from in San Miguel about doing things, but I think I chose the right people. Oh. Yes, for sure. Yeah.